You know, every single second of your life, there's this invisible battle raging inside your body. It's not against some outside invader, but against the very byproducts of being alive. Your body is in a constant fight to maintain this perfect chemical balance against a relentless acidic attack from your own metabolism. So today we're going to dive into the incredible multi-layered defense system that keeps us all going.
It all comes down to this one number, 7.4. That's the perfect pH for your blood, and it's not just a nice to have, it is an absolute non-negotiable requirement for life. See, all the tiny machines in our cells, the enzymes and proteins that run the whole show, they are designed to work perfectly, but only in this incredibly narrow window. If you stray too far one way or the other, things start to fall apart, and they fall apart fast.
And that really gets us to the main question here, right? The very act of living, just turning your last meal into energy, is constantly creating acid. We're always pushing our own bodies into a potentially dangerous zone. So how on earth does the body pull off this amazing balancing act day in and day out and keep us from tipping over the edge? Well, it turns out it has a brilliant tiered defense strategy.
So in this explainer, that's the story we're going to follow. We'll start by looking at that delicate balance itself, what we're calling the pH tightrope. Then we're going to meet the three lines of defense, the instant-acting buffer brigade, the rapid response lungs, and finally the super powerful master regulators, the kidneys. And then we'll see what happens when those systems get overwhelmed.
Okay, so let's get right into it with that tightrope. Why is this balance so unbelievably critical, and what is it that we're actually measuring?
So pH is really just a simple scale for how many hydrogen ions are floating around. The more hydrogen ions you have, the more acidic things are, and the lower the pH number goes. Now, for our blood, that normal, healthy range is incredibly tight. We're talking between 7.35 and 7.45. That tiny, tiny window is literally the difference between health and serious, serious trouble.
All right, so let's say a sudden surge of acid hits your bloodstream. Who answers the call first? Well, that would be the buffer brigade, the body's chemical first responders.
And the speed here is just mind-blowing. We're talking fractions of a single second. Before you could even possibly know there's a problem, these chemical systems are already on the scene, basically soaking up those excess hydrogen ions to stop a big pH shift in its tracks. They are your immediate frontline defense.
Now this right here shows the most important buffer system we have, the bicarbonate system. When a strong acid shows up, and by strong I mean one that's aggressively dumping hydrogen ions everywhere, bicarbonate ions jump in the way. They grab onto that aggressive hydrogen ion, and, in doing so, they transform that dangerous strong acid into a much weaker, more manageable one called carbonic acid. It's really a beautiful piece of chemical negotiation.
And this is the magic number that makes it all work. To keep our blood pH perfectly stable at 7.4, the body maintains this precise 20-to-1 ratio of bicarbonate to carbonic acid. Having this huge reserve of bicarbonate means our system is always ready to handle the constant acid production from our metabolism. As long as this ratio holds steady, our pH holds steady. And really, the next two lines of defense are all about protecting this magic number.
Okay, let's move on to our second tier of defense. If the buffers are starting to get swamped, the body calls in the rapid response team, your lungs.
Your lungs can jump into action within minutes. Now, remember that weak acid we just talked about, carbonic acid? Well, it has a neat little trick. It can easily break down into two things, water and carbon dioxide. And what's the fastest way for your body to get rid of CO2? Well, you just breathe it out. So your lungs basically act like a pressure release valve for acid in the form of CO2.
And here's how that works. You've got these incredible little sensors in your brainstem that are constantly monitoring your blood's pH. If they sense things are getting a little too acidic, they signal you to start breathing faster and deeper. This is hyperventilation, and by doing it, you blow off more CO2, which effectively pulls that acid right out of your system. It's a really elegant and super fast feedback loop.
But while the lungs are fast, they can't solve every problem. For the long-term game, for the really heavy lifting, the body calls in its strategic command, the third, and by far the most powerful, line of defense. And that's the kidneys. Now, they might take hours or even days to fully kick in, but their control over pH is absolute. They are the only system that can actually remove certain kinds of acids from the body for good, like the lactic acid you get from a tough workout, and, just as importantly, they're responsible for creating new bicarbonate to resupply the buffer system.
So if you look at them side by side, it's pretty clear. The lungs offer a fast, powerful response by managing CO2. But the kidneys, they provide the ultimate, most powerful fix. They physically kick hydrogen ions out of the body in urine, and they manufacture brand new bicarbonate to restore that critical 20-to-1 ratio. Essentially, they clean up the whole mess and rearm the frontline defenders.
So what happens when this amazing tiered system gets overwhelmed, or maybe one part of it is broken? Well, that's when you can get into the clinical states of either acidosis, where your blood is too acidic, or alkalosis, where it's not acidic enough.
This flowchart is a great look at how doctors figure out what's going on. They start with the blood's pH. Let's say it's low. Okay, that means acidosis. The very next question is, why? They look at the carbon dioxide level, the PCO2. If the CO2 is high, that means the lungs aren't doing their job, pointing to a respiratory cause. But if the CO2 is fine and the bicarbonate is low, then it's a metabolic problem. It's a logical path to pinpoint the source of the trouble.
And it all boils down to these 4 main disorders. If the problem starts with the lungs and CO2 levels, it's called respiratory, acidosis, or alkalosis. If the problem is really about bicarbonate levels or some other acid in the system, it's called metabolic. Each name is a clue that points directly to which part of the defense system is struggling. All right, so let's just recap the whole defensive strategy one more time. Tier 1, you've got the chemical buffers acting instantly. Tier 2, the lungs respond in just minutes by changing how much CO2 you breathe out. And Tier 3, the kidneys, provide that slow, steady, but ultimate solution over hours and days. It's just a beautiful, integrated system of defense in depth.
And I think this quote from our source material just perfectly sums it all up. Although the kidneys are relatively slow to respond, they are by far the most powerful of the acid-base regulatory systems. Speed isn't everything. While the buffers and lungs are absolutely critical for surviving minute to minute, it's the kidneys that are the ultimate guarantors of our long-term stability.
So I'll leave you with a little thought experiment to apply everything we've just covered. Imagine you're in the middle of some really intense exercise. Your muscles are burning and they're pumping out tons of lactic acid. Based on what you now know about this tiered defense, which systems are firing on all cylinders and in what order? It's a pretty incredible process happening inside all of us all the time.
Comment your next topic and subscribe MedX Lab.